SABC, together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, bring you the final verdict. In the pursuit of justice, we are all equal before the law. These are some of the stories that have led to the final verdict. In South Africa, the constitutional rights of the child include the right to family or parental care. The maintenance courts are set up to deal with situations where parents or family members have failed to honor their legal duty of support towards their children.
We have parents who simply do not have any regard to their responsibilities towards their children. And therefore, there is a need, therefore, for the courts to intervene.
First and foremost, parents have a primary obligation to maintain their children, wherever those children are, whether they are living with them or living with other people.
Kim, molofnek.
Mololumka.
Sorry, as ben gayas bana.
No, ngabe naqhala. Do you understand?
Ingaba yonke into right? Into ngxaki funeka.
Ukhona?
Ubani usoli? No, akakho usendleleni ezayo.
I had to come. Ndiyayazi ba ufunekanga kodwa benyanzelekile bamandiza.
Kuqhubeka ntoni ifuneka? Ingaba lento imalunga nonyana wakho uLundi?
Luni ndimse ku sister wami. Kuba mina ndingakwazi umgcina. I had nowhere else to go.
But I don't understand. Lento imalunga nemali o benicimana nje usoli uyamondla umntana.
Azange wabhatala.
Akazange wafaka nesandla.
Azange aqalise.
In 10 years.
Ndayazi ba unabantwana bakho ne. Kodwa nzama ukuthi I can't do this on my own.
Come inside.
Okay.
The duty to maintain is founded by blood relationship. The moment the child is born, of that father, the duty to maintain starts. And then whether you are married or not, it's immaterial. Whether the mother is married to another man or not, it's immaterial. As long as you are the biological father of that child, you are bound to maintain that child until the child becomes self-supporting.
A man who marries for a second time, or divorces the first wife, marries a second and has children in the second marriage, is not freed from his obligations regarding the children of the first marriage. The law recognizes his children, not his children by which woman. You bring a child into this world, the law imposes obligations on you for the maintenance of the child.
Generally, children are in custody of their mothers, and therefore the mothers are the ones applying instead and on behalf of the children for the maintenance of the children. But nothing precludes a custodial father to claim maintenance from the mother whose children the father is in custody of.
If the court grants an order of maintenance, then it will instruct the person whom you're claiming maintenance against to pay directly into the applicant's bank account or to pay directly into the court's bank account.
Unfortunately, it happens that a maintenance court issues a maintenance order, but partners simply do not obey the maintenance order. If one is faced with such a situation, there first has to be proof that the other partner who's got the obligation to pay the maintenance has received the maintenance order, that they have been requested to comply with the maintenance order, and they simply refuse to do so. in a situation as that, the party in whose favor the order has been granted is entitled to approach the maintenance court and advise accordingly and place the proof that this person is aware of the order but simply will not comply.
Coming up, Funeka takes her husband to court over the maintenance he has failed to pay.
I haven't seen my boy in 4 months.
When the divorce from his first wife, Funeka, was finalized, Solly was ordered to pay 100 Rand a month until their son was 18. 10 years later, and Solly had not stuck to the agreement. In order for Funeka to find out what her rights were, she needed to visit the maintenance officer at the magistrate's court.
What is this?
Mall. Didn't it?
My ex-husband, he doesn't pay maintenance, and I was told to come here.
This is the maintenance office. Please have a seat. You'll need to alert your ex-husband that we have a claim against him so he knows when to come to court. You can do this by sending a summons.
A summons?
It's not complicated at all. You just need to fill out this form.
The form the maintenance officer is referring to is a summons, which is used to call the defendant to court. It can be sent via registered mail or, for a small fee, be served by a maintenance officer or the sheriff of the court.
You need to prove that he received it, because if he doesn't come to court, he will be found in contempt of the law. It's a bit strange, I know, but trust me, if your ex-husband isn't paying maintenance, the court takes it very seriously. He's breaking the law after all.
If the parties want to institute a claim for maintenance, they need to approach their nearest magistrates' courts. All magistrates' courts are maintenance courts for the purpose of this act. And they need to approach the court where the child lives, the court closest to where the child lives, or the court closest to where the person in whose care the child lives. If it's a first-time application, it's best to contact the court beforehand, because they only process or they only take on new applications on certain days of the week.
The role of the maintenance officer in our courts, especially the maintenance courts, is to assist the members of the public who come through to court to lodge claims for maintenance. It is the duty of the maintenance officer to interview both parties, in this case the complainant and the respondent, in order to try and mediate between the two of them so that eventually they can reach an agreement in terms of how much money the respondent should pay on behalf of the children. In the event that those discussions do not yield a result, it is the duty of the maintenance officer to refer that particular matter to an inquiry.
Funeka, on June the 2nd, 2001, a court ordered the accused to pay 100 Rand towards the maintenance of his child, correct?
Correct.
What does the accused do for a living?
He is a taxi driver.
Have you seen him drive the taxi between 2001 and 2011?
Yes.
If the accused came to court and stated that he could not pay maintenance because he was not employed on a daily basis, what would you say to that?
Full-time or part-time, it doesn't matter. He was still employed. And if he was unemployed, he wouldn't have got married.
Yes. What type of a wedding was it?
A white wedding.
Do you agree with me that a white wedding is an expensive wedding?
Very.
Ms. Kazia, since the divorce, has the accused helped with the child in any way?
He hasn't assisted me in any way. I've tried to ask him to help so many times. He said he would, but he never did.
So, he was just making promises?
Yes, promises he never kept.
How has this affected your child?
I had to take my boy to live with my sister and the family in Transkei because I couldn't look after him. I couldn't afford to buy him clothes or food. I haven't seen my boy in 4 months.
No further questions, Your Worship.
What first happens is a determination of what the child needs. Then, having answered that question, you go and look at both parents. Are they able, firstly, to contribute 50-50 each to the requirements of the child? Or is one parent in a far better position to do so than the other?
We take the overall need of the child and quantify it into rents and cents. Both the income and expenses of the mother and the father are taken into account and their means in totality. And the court determines the amount in proportion to the income of both parties.
There is a general understanding as to what the money is for. It normally would be for school fees, for school books, for uniforms, for clothing or for the child, and was just for general living expenses. Unfortunately, a lot of men tend to believe that the money they pay towards maintenance for the child is misappropriated by the mother for other things.
Especially when you deal with the maintenance of a child. You are dealing with two parents, a pair which at one stage declared themselves the best match made in heaven, and something went very sour. So there are issues of pride, there are issues of hate, there are issues sometimes of seeking revenge. So courts need to be very careful, and we are very awake to those realities. You see, so sometimes these claims arise out of that. You find that because I'm not staying with the woman and the children, I want to dictate how the money is to be spent. And if the money is not spent in terms of my wishes, I have an apprehension that the money is being abused. Where there is information indeed that women, as it is generally alleged, are taking care of their hairstyles and their manicures and pedicures instead of taking care of the children, then you can come back to the court for the court to reconsider its order.
Coming up, the case seems straightforward, but will Soli's reasons for not paying put things into perspective?
From the beginning, you knew I could not work full-time because of my illness, correct?
The Maintenance Act was introduced in 1998 to establish a fair and equitable child maintenance system. The Act gives high priority to the rights of the child and sets out measures to secure maintenance from the parents or other persons having financial responsibility for the child. Maintenance courts, maintenance officers, and investigators facilitate the fair processing of claims. The maintenance courts are set up to make the process easy and accessible to the public.
The old Maintenance Act, one of the reasons why it was amended was to introduce civil remedies which are geared towards what we seek to achieve through the Maintenance Act. Because through the Maintenance Act, what we seek to achieve is recovery of maintenance money for children. That should be the uppermost in our minds.
In terms of Section 31(1) of the Maintenance Act, it states that if a person failed to pay maintenance, that person is guilty of an offence and can be convicted and liable for imprisonment or a fine. It goes even further and states that should the person raise the defence that they did not have the means to pay the maintenance, they will not be acquitted on that grounds if it can be proved that it was through their own misconduct or it was due to their unwillingness to work. So that wouldn't be a valid defence if it can be proved.
In the maintenance courts, there's no need to employ the services of a legal representative. Therefore, the accused chose to represent himself.
You have the opportunity now to cross-examine the witness. Everything in the evidence that you do not agree with, you'll have to dispute by putting questions and statements to the witness. If you fail to do so, it can be argued that you agreed.
I understand, Your Worship.
You may proceed.
From the beginning, you knew I could not work full-time because of my illness, correct?
I'm not aware of your illness.
I dispute the fact that you testified that I did not contribute in any way.
Why? put specific issues to her.
According to you, you do not recall me assisting you with anything. You know very well that I assisted you overall, but I don't think you...
How did you assist her overall exactly?
She would call me and say that they do not have food at home.
Yes?
I would come over, take some money, so they could buy food.
That's funny. Because I don't remember ever that happening. Was I there? Or are you talking about the time you came into my home and then you gave Ulundi 10 rand and then you left?
I do as much as I can for you and Lundi.
Do you have any further questions?
No, Your Worship.
It is in very rare circumstances that a partner who's responsible for maintenance approaches the other partner or approaches the court and say, I have been maintaining for the past 5 years. Due to certain circumstances, maybe I've lost a job, I am not in a position to do so anymore. Can the maintenance order be suspended until I get another job, and I'll come report back and the maintenance can continue? That would be the preferable route, but that is very rare. People just simply choose not to maintain. And they come up with a whole sorts of different reasons as to why they are not maintaining.
Sir, the complainant told the court that you got married to your current wife 8 years ago?
Yes.
Do you agree with me, sir, that you cannot have a wedding ceremony without money?
I agree.
You have to pay a fair amount of money. Plus, you had to pay 100 rand towards maintenance, correct?
Correct. And I spent about that amount.
Oh, surely not. How much did you spend exactly?
About 600 rand on petrol.
And then, of course, this food. How much did you spend on food?
My sister bought the food.
And liquor? How much did you spend on liquor?
I don't remember.
Why did you prefer to celebrate rather than giving this money to your child for food? Why did you not give this money to your child?
I do not dispute that.
Okay, let me get this straight. You did not pay maintenance because you were sick and because you were taking care of your other children, correct?
Correct.
You were found guilty in 2003 for failing to pay maintenance, correct?
Correct.
And now, here you are again, 8 years later. How can the court be sure that you will not keep repeating this mistake?
I can only promise to pay it.
We all know about your promises, Mr. Kabak.
If I go to jail, I will not be able to work. And then my wife and my children will not have money for food and rent. How will that help anyone?
That's very true. But Mr. Kabaka, this is a measure of last resort. Clearly, demands don't work on you, neither do court orders.
Not fooled by Soli's exaggerated show of remorse, the court was able to decide the case by assessing the evidence put before it.
For the recovery of maintenance, the court can make an order for the attachment of that person's property. And that means that the person's movables, that is their vehicles, furniture and all of that, can be attached for the recovery of the money, or the immovable property, which is a house, so it's the property. Can also make an order for the attachment of emolument orders, and that is directing the person who is supposed to pay maintenance, employer, to pay the money directly into the applicant's bank account.
Generally, when we are approached, especially for enforcement of maintenance, people, and in the main it's women, they argue for us to consider imprisonment.
Maintenance courts, they seldom, or they're very reluctant to grant imprisonment because it interferes with the offender's family life, and it also interferes with his ability to go out and work and bring in an income in order to pay the maintenance.
Mr. Kabaka, not paying maintenance is an unacceptable crime. Not least because there's dire consequences for your child. The biggest concern for this court is the fact that you seem not to have any remorse. And you also do not realize the seriousness of this offense. It also seems that you regard this payment of maintenance as one of your debts. The accused is hereby sentenced to 9 months imprisonment.
A lot of people tend to misunderstand the purpose of a maintenance or a maintenance order. It is not intended to punish any partner. It is intended to take care of the child. When people are living in a relationship and in a family unit, and the relationship is harmonious, they actually are not aware that they are maintaining the children. Once they are then apart, that obligation continues. But then it gets more difficult to part with the money to continue the very same obligation they have maintained probably for 10 years.
With regard to maintenance, our primary focus is recovery of maintenance in the best interest of the child. If it needs imprisoning a person to awake him to that reality, so be it, but that should not be the first option. It must be the last trench that we arrive at, if there are other avenues to be considered. Look, there are people who are recalcitrant. I won't lie to you. I know there are people who simply, the problem is you have basically in maintenance matters, especially when it relates to children, basically what I call a triangle, all right? You have the child at the top, at the bottom part, on the left corner you have the mother, on the right corner you have the father. And there is the relationship between the mother and the father, and the relationship between the mother and the child, and the relationship between the father and the child. Now, what happens in the main is that sometimes one of the two, either the mother or the father, wants to use the spoiled relationship between him to influence the relationship between the other, the other and the child, which is unfair. As a father, however hurt you may be by what your ex-spouse did, or as a mother, whatever the man did to you, that is not the child, and it mustn't be the child that is used to fight the battles between you. It is unfair to our children, and that would be my humble plea, especially to divorced parents, but in general to parents who are not residing at the same place. Most of them, the relationship has soured, and sometimes it is basically down the drain, all right? But my humble plea to South Africans is, let's not use that against our children and/or use our children in that fight.
The duty to pay maintenance arises regardless of whether the parents are married or not. To lodge a claim at the maintenance court, go to your nearest magistrate's court where the maintenance officer will assist you. Summons may be served by hand delivery or by registered post. The maintenance court determines the child's needs and the finances available, and then decides on the amount payable by each parent. The final verdict was brought to you by SABC together with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development.